I sort of feel like jelly today.
Oh, yeah.
That like completely relaxed, like noodly sort of feeling you get.
Yeah.
You know how I've talked about I've been so amped up and just working so hard and unable to really calm down?
Yeah.
It hit me today, and I had a lesson and I just kept yawning, and I was like, I'm sorry, it's not you, it's me. I'm like, I've just finally relaxed.
Well, I mean, part of it is you did ski all day.
I did go skiing. It was only 2 hours, actually.
Wow.
You know.
Well, you know.
But it was a hard 2 hours. I like.
Yeah,
going
that's
for
an
it.
intense.
My legs were pretty burning, but I like doing that last run, like not stopping, just burning it out.
Well, it's better.
Burning it out.
Yeah, yeah. It's better to stop before you literally fall down.
Like last time.
Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna power through it.
What are we drinking?
So we made a Dark and Stormy.
Oh, I like Dark and Stormies.
Yeah,
like
that is actually in honor of our buddy Julian from the Petty Nicks Experience,
Yeah?
who's one of his favorites. I don't know if it's his always go-to, is a Dark and Stormy. And he once, famously, we were laughing at the last show backstage. He got a really bad Dark and Stormy, where it's supposed to be ginger beer, so it's very gingery, and it's supposed to have a bunch of lime, and it's supposed to have dark rum, and so it's very flavorful. And he got one that had like just ginger ale and whatever.
Oh yeah.
And he said
It was like light colored.
it was like light colored. And he was like, "This isn't a storm.
It's not a dark and stormy. It's a light and stormy. It's a light.
I could call it. This is a cloudy day." So we had a cloudy day, and so I'm making a little Dark and Stormy for our buddy Julian, and who, by the way, has stayed on the charts on the Colorado radio stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, I saw
Julian.
something recently where, yeah, he's still, his last EP is still like top 5.
Dang. And you know what? He got a good slot at Foco MX.
He got an amazing slot.
Yeah, amazing. It was like 6 p.m. Saturday at Washington's.
I know. Yeah,
I think it's Saturday, but it's 6 p.m. at Washington.
Right.
So that's an amazing slot.
Yeah, you got moved into one of those, like,
Yeah.
big slots. So
Yeah.
Julian's doing great, so...
Yay, Julian.
Dark and Stormy, buddy. All right, well, we got stuff to talk about.
Yes, we do. So I had the last gig with Pamela Makala's band. That's going to happen, and she says till the fall. I mean, we'll see. She's about to have a baby, so, no pressure for her to come back before she's ready. But... So I've mentioned many times in this podcast that I still have some nerves playing bass, and it's just I'm putting the miles in the car right now. I'm just taking every gig I can and just trying to like improve a little bit every time. But also, I am co-hosting the Path to Peak Performance with Dr. John Skidmore right now. So it's a 3-session course online where we learn mental tools for performing in flow state, performing like at your peak, which is stuff that's not new to me because I figured that out for water skiing and I figured it out when I had stage fright for singing. And so I can do those things without nerves, but I still was having nerves playing bass. So one of the tools that he gave us, and it was a packed full session, but one of the many tools he gave us was to pick 3 words that represent who you want to be as a performer on stage. Mm-hmm. For example, his example was bold, confident, and free. And I picked my 3 words as a bassist to be embedded, as in enmeshed, embedded in the music.
Right,
like
yeah,
I'm in the middle of the music. Mm-hmm. Confident, and joyful.
Right.
And so at Pamela's show, I picked just the word embedded, and I just kind of kept touching back on that. Like, do I feel embedded? Be embedded. Just pay attention. And it changed my mental state. It like really did. It felt like I went from that like tight feeling of like that brittle feeling.
Right.
To that flow feeling.
Yeah.
Literally. And the best difference I can describe is I feel like when I'm in that tight, brittle mental state, whenever I make a mistake, it's like I gave myself a tiny little electric shock, like, bzz,
oh, right.
mistake, bzz. And I move right past it, but then I'm like, bzz, made a mistake. And this time, I didn't make very many mistakes. First of all, it felt like
Sure.
my brain just worked better. And second, the couple times that I did make minor mistakes, I just was like, flow right into it. Like, I'm just flowing
Right.
to the next note. It didn't feel the same. So it's good stuff. You know, our realities are created by our brains. Our bodies behave depending on what our brains do. So, I mean, it's all about the mental stuff, man.
Yeah, I mean, I say that all the time in coaching and stuff. I mean, your brain is so bad at telling what actually happened or what was just a thought that you had. You know, there's
Right.
a part of your brain that just doesn't do a good job of differentiating that.
Well, your brain doesn't have eyes.
Right.
Your brain gets information from your eyes, but it also gets information from when you visualize, and it can't really tell the difference.
Exactly. So, you know, visualizing negative things can be really dangerous in a lot of ways because you're you know, your part of you feels like that actually happened, that it actually went bad. But that's so great that you got past that. I've thought about that a lot. I mean, that's one advantage I have as a player too. Is you know, like that. It is that part where you just don't get thrown by mistakes. They're like, yikes, that wasn't what I wanted to do, and then like.
Yeah.
And then it's past you, and it's just like, you know.
I felt like I was previously doing a good job of moving past my mistakes. Like I wasn't getting stuck in them, but still the experience of having them was negative.
Right.
Because of that, I like the word brittle. That's the way I've been feeling as a bassist, brittle. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I pick it
I
up.
get that.
I pick it up quickly, but like, this was just much more flexible and flowy.
Yeah.
And it was such a cool experience. So anyway, it was a great show. It's in this cute little place called the Times Collective. I think it's a co-working space. It was just set up temporarily for music.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Run by Soundpost Sessions, which is a new nonprofit that supports local original music and just puts on shows. The opener was Kyle Donovan from Longmont, and I am pointing him out because he blew me away. I'm not often blown away by singer-songwriters.
Right.
I recognize the quality of songs and singers and songwriters and the playing, but I like rock music. I like big stuff. But Kyle blew me away. He was so, I mean, his voice was great. His playing was great. His songs were amazing. There's our rice cooker going off.
Thanks, Susie. Using the rice cooker.
But his songs were so good, I thought they must mostly be covers. And I asked him if they were mostly originals.
That is saying something, yeah.
Kyle Donovan from Longmont, we'll put a link in the description. Definitely check him out.
I'm sure he's on
he's on
the internet.
Spotify. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, as people are these days.
Everybody's on the internet.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, we've talked about it before, an all-female band with Pamela.
Right? Yep. And a pleasure to play with. I couldn't remember Mary's last name last week. Mary Claxton from the Burrows.
Right.
An amazing drummer. So laid back. And a lot of Pamela's tempos are pretty slow. Like there's a lot of tempos in the like 70s with Pamela.
Which is low.
It's very slow.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get to the chorus and I feel like I want to push it. And Mary's like super solid. Like, nope. Ka-chunk. Like, that's how fast we're going, and we're not moving. I'm like, yep, good training.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, really fun to play with that all-female band. It's just different to hang out with all women. I don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I guess I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. So that was, what was that?
That was Friday night.
Friday night.
And then Saturday, we had showcase rehearsal.
Oh, yeah, of course. We had showcase rehearsal, which I had a big week prepping for all of that stuff. It was a relatively easy showcase for me, but, you know, a couple tough things. You know, the metal songs always throw you because it's almost like they just try to make them hard on purpose. I think that's part of the value proposition of that style is like at least the bridge is going to be unnecessarily complicated. I felt like it's just a finger exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other hard thing was there a couple solos that, and I'm glad that I did learn them because it turned out the singers were paying a lot more attention to those solo parts than I would have even guessed. And unfortunately, haven't figured out a way to write out solos in a way that I can read them like I would read a chart that's telling me go to this chord and go to this chord. A lot of times it's just going really fast.
Yeah.
And I write myself like ridiculous notes that it's like Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Clapton.
Really? That's how you tell yourself what to do?
Yeah, double bend. Like, I'll reference the order of the solo of like it's this guy's lick and then it's this guy's lick and then so it gets me ballpark where I'm like, oh yeah, just do the Clapton thing and then or like I'll reference a song, like there's one particular lick in one of the songs that's totally like it's basically the lick that happens in Freebird when Freebird picks up and goes fast at the end. So that's my thing right there is like, bar 3 or 6 or whatever it is, it's Freebird. And it just goes, oh yeah, do that thing. But it, so that's one thing that hangs me up a bunch. If it was just chords, and Brian Stax, the keyboard player for that, he's got a lot more to do. He's got a lot of melodic parts in this. It's one thing when you're just, we've talked about this. We were actually talking about this a bit with some of your gigs you've been doing on bass where it's one thing to just go, oh, well, the song is these chords and then just kind of hang in on these chords. That's not a lot to learn. But when you're adding in all the actual signature stuff and like this melodic line actually goes and it needs to go right here and it needs to all that stuff kind of like exponentially makes learning something harder.
Yeah.
So I can't complain with this showcase. It was generally easy, but I just had a couple of guitar solos that I really had to like work on memorizing because that's,
There are always a few songs that take most of the time.
Right. And that stupid hit me with your best shot solo. And I only say it's stupid because I have had to learn it repeatedly for like a decade. And it never sinks in. It's just such a random solo. It's awesome. It's great. Neil Giraldo, amazing guitar player. It's so cool. It's so original. But that's part of why it's very hard to remember because it isn't related to anything in the melody. It isn't related. It's just, it's its own little piece of music in the middle of this song. And it's just sort of all over the fretboard. And it's just like, oh, this idea and then this idea. Yeah.
There's a lot of neaners in that one.
Yeah. And I don't know why I can't retain that. Guitar solo. Anyway, I thought rehearsal went amazing. It made me so grateful for the people we played with.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been just feeling incredibly grateful this week for the people that I get to play with. I guess, one thing that triggered it was Saturday night after the rehearsal.
Right.
I went out to see Sisters of the Moon at Fracco's. Lori Clayton, Michelle Owen Clemenson, and Jennifer, oh gosh, it begins with an S. I don't know her, but I looked up her name because she's good.
Yeah.
They sounded great together. And I was feeling very grateful because I was thinking back to when we played at the Toad Tavern as a trio, as Adrienne O.
Fracco's used to be Toad Tavern.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, man, I've been here a while now, and I've paid my dues. Playing at all the places. Lion's Lair. Do you remember playing at Lion's Lair?
Sure.
Oh my gosh. Oh, we've had so many weird gigs. And I walked in the door and Doug Boehm, who's running the booking there, like recognized me immediately, was like almost seemed apologetic asking me to pay. And I was like, dude, I'm here to support. Like,
right,
of course. Yeah. And then Lori and Michelle like welcomed me on mic, like, oh, Adrienne's here. And I was like, what? Am I a celebrity or something? Oh my gosh. And then Doug seated me at a reserve table. And I was like, what is going on here? Anyway, just like the whole picture of it, just the wonderful musicians I get to play with in all these bands, in all the bands I'm in. And
oh yeah.
And feeling embedded, like I said, feeling embedded in the community. And I told you, I guess I'll go ahead and say this on the podcast. So I told you about my experience using the word embedded as my kind of mantra for playing.
Oh, right.
And it's a weird word to pick, right? The words that Dr. John Skidmore picked as examples of bold, confident, and free sound like some pretty normal words you might pick as a lead singer or a musician. And I picked embedded.
Right.
And that was my number one word. And reflecting on it, the meaning of that for me is not just being embedded in the music, but being embedded in my community and my social life. And what it harkens back to is I've always been the person who loved putting on parties so that, I'd be the host so that people could get together and have fun, and I was kind of hanging on the edge. Or I've started many, many bands, and I started this company so that I can be part of it. Like, I started it, so I'm in it for sure, And in high school, I always I was never really part of one clique. I was I'd jump around. I was sort of friends with the smart kids, and I was sort of friends with the track kids, and I was sort of friends with the emo kids, and I was sort of friends with just every different group, but I wasn't part of any one of them.
Right.
And so I think that I've always maybe yearned to belong. And I think that's true of every human. I mean, that's who we are. I'm not saying oh, poor me, I never belong anywhere. But I think that I'm even though I like to be alone, I also really like to belong. And so playing bass embeds me in the music in a way that singing lead does not embed me in the music. I am in the middle of it as a bass player, and I love that. And so I think that's why that word kind of bubbled up for me.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting.
So when I was at Fracco's, watching Sisters of the Moon doing their thing, the harmonies they'd worked out, which sounded gorgeous, feeling like people were coming up to me because I saw Joanne Aguirre, I saw somebody else who is a fan of the Petty Nicks Experience, came up and hugged me, and I was like, I am embedded.
Yeah.
I really am. I switched careers for this, and it worked.
That's amazing.
Just grateful.
Well, and grateful. I mean, not to take it back to another thing, but I was even in the showcase rehearsal sometimes, I was watching the band navigate through something for the first time run, and I was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
That this group of people is first time through that Villain song, which
is
it's very modern pop, so complicated and very chopped up in the computer kind of thing, but also very jazzy and a million jazz chords. And we walked right through it.
I know.
And we'll rehearse it twice just to make sure that wasn't a fluke that we got it. But it was I was sort of messing up because I was dude, this is wild to be in a room with dudes like this.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, so that was great. And I was home. I stayed home working on the Fracco's thing.
The Fracco's thing?
Sorry. While you were at Fracco's,
oh.
I stayed home and worked.
Yeah.
And I was working on a client that I've had for a long time, Sonia Kiva. Sonia Kiva. We're finishing one record, and then Sunday we got together and tracked at least the scratch tracks for 4 more tracks for the new album. So I'm, finishing up her record, and then we just chewed through, knocking out some of those tracks for her. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. We've worked enough together to where it's just, it's interesting to watch somebody go from someone who has never recorded before and is a singer-songwriter and plays guitar and whatever, but doesn't really focus that much on, they're just writing songs and stuff, and then watching her become kind of a studio pro where her counting is immaculate now. It's just I can be we're gonna punch something in, and I'm you got an 8 count there. And I was saying even with the pickup notes, where it's da da da, 4 and 1, and so I could even be you've got an 8 count, and she would be 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 and 1. And just nailing them. And I was man, that is not, when we started working together 7 or 8 years ago or whatever, that was not in your skill set, and now you're bulletproof,
Love it.
Yeah, it's amazing to see somebody.
I love just watching people grow.
Yeah, it really is, Yeah. And she'll now come in with her BPMs mapped out.
Oh.
And just I know this one has a tempo change in it, and I've worked on it kind of a lot, and it's 109 here, and then when I pick up into it, it's 114, and it's just really cool seeing somebody figure all this stuff out from I got this song, but I don't know what to do with it, to being I'm really sure I know what I want to do with this.
That's great.
Yeah, so that was fun. Good to see her.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was that our weekend?
Well,
it was not our weekend because we went to the movies.
Yeah. And we're saying it that way because this movie knocked us, I don't know, knocked us
For a loop.
Yeah. So the movie is Problemista.
Uh-huh.
And we went to Alamo Drafthouse because we have season passes to Alamo Drafthouse.
It's very exclusive.
Yeah.
Don't even try to get them. You probably won't be able to.
But Problemista. So what's the comedian's name?
Julio Torres.
So he was the writer, director, and lead actor.
Yes.
And then, oh gosh.
Tilda Swinton.
Yes, Tilda Swinton. Oh my gosh.
Was the antagonist role, I guess you would say, in the movie.
Yeah.
Or maybe not, but she was the co-lead. It was just a, first off, shockingly original movie.
Yes.
Like, so many movies you see are basically the same.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it was
this
very
was
original.
not at all.
By A24, the same company that did Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
They are coming in hot. They have a lot of good movies.
They're
very creative.
Yeah.
And apparently they are record labeled now too.
Yeah, I've got to look into that part.
Yeah.
But yeah, Julio Torres was apparently a stand-up comedian, and he was a writer on Saturday Night Live. And then has moved on to making this movie. And it's a, in a lot of ways, it's the tale of an artist wanting to make it in a very specific industry. And then it also deals with, it's a lot about New York City, which really touched some chords for me. I never lived in New York City, but I visited kind of a lot in the early 2000s, and I would not be surprised if the time period he was, and apparently I did read up on it, the movie was somewhat autobiographical of him moving there and then trying to figure out and trying to get a work visa and trying to get jobs and trying to make it work. And but it seemed very like the New York I remembered from when I used to visit and hang out. And
So anyway, it's about, the struggle of trying to follow your dream in another country, and also about the relationship between a very difficult woman and this kid who's trying to just get work. And by the end, man, that not just a little tear. I wanted I wanted to sob. It was because it was so beautiful.
So beautiful.
Not sad. It wasn't sad at all. It was just beautiful. It was heartbreakingly beautiful.
Yeah.
We might go back and see it again.
We really,
highly recommend.
Yeah, highly recommend. I mean, it was so much about, there were so many. It was a very dense movie too. There were so many themes and so many ideas in it. But some of it was the main character dealing with this woman character was one of the worst things that ever happened to him in his life. But then that gave him the strength
to get where he wanted to
get where he wanted to go, and which is so true of so many of the bad things that happen to us, is that later we go, oh, that actually helped me figure out how to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a movie. It was so good.
I want to see it again. Oh, I already want to see it again. Problemista.
One of the other lead characters was RZA from Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah.
Who's the main producer and leader of the Wu-Tang Clan. And apparently, just because I'm a reader, he majorly revolutionized hip-hop production, because he was one of the first guys to figure out how to use 2 and 4 bar loops. Whereas late 80s, early 90s, with the technology they had, it was very hard to use at least multiple 2 and 4 bar loops. Most of it was 1 bar loops. If you go back and listen to a lot of that kind of stuff, a lot of times it is these little short chunks that go over and over again. And not that he was on his own, not that he didn't learn from other people, but apparently RZA was just and so influential too, because I don't know if you guys have noticed that lo-fi beats or whatever.
Yeah.
And the early Wu-Tang stuff was really some of the first stuff that was definitely lo-fi and stuff, and that has now become this entire category of billions and billions of views on YouTube that are these lo-fi beats, and they're sort of just these Wu-Tang sounding. Or at least the drums are. Really influential dude. Don't know why I got off on that whole thing.
It's bringing the movie back to the music.
Yeah, no, for sure. Anyway, I guess let's talk about what's coming up next week. 'Cause
Yeah. We can wrap pretty soon. Well, we have the showcase next weekend, so that's the main thing. We have another showcase rehearsal, and then the showcase rehearsal Saturday, showcase Sunday, and my friend Roger Cox is going to be coming in from Salt Lake City. He's taken a lesson or two with you and a lesson maybe with me, and he's going to come out and take lessons with both of us and hang out and watch the showcase rehearsal maybe. I mean, he's just flying in for the weekend.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. And as I've mentioned, I'm getting ready. I'm pretty ready on bass. If Nate's baby decides to come,
you may have to.
I'll just step in. And it's been fun. I mean, I was just like learning. I like any reason to learn new songs that isn't just learning a song. Like if there's a threat of me having to play it, that's a much bigger motivator than just learning songs.
It helps so much to have a reason to learn a song rather than just like, oh, I should probably figure that out.
Yeah.
But being like, at least at this point, it's like, oh no, I have a gig that I need to do that. Then I'm definitely like, and you always enjoy it. But I'm going to tell you, I love our new schedule of things where we're, at least the last few times has been, a rehearsal one weekend, and then the next weekend is a rehearsal on Saturday, and then the actual showcase show on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And I love that so much because it just, we've talked on the podcast about how my brain tends to work with music, where I'm very...
you need to cram it at the last minute.
It'll go away if I'm not, because I've got so many other songs I'm working on and stuff that it's just like, I mean, I'm probably, with touching stuff for production, I was just telling you, I'm like, putting the other tracks to send out to a steel guitar player and this and that. And I've probably got, not counting the showcase, I probably got 40-ish songs on my plate that I'm dipping in and out of and working on parts of. So it's so great to have that rehearsal Saturday and then keep it fresh and then just do the show Sunday.
Yeah.
And
before that all fades.
Before it all fades.
Your brain's very efficient at cleaning up after itself.
Yeah, I think it really is. I think that's some of what it is. I mean, I just don't keep stuff.
Yeah.
Which is why I can't get that stupid Pat Benatar song. But I'll do it this coming up weekend anyway. Any takeaways from the week?
Well, I mean,
other than
embedded.
Yeah. Which is a huge one, man. Knowing who and where you want to be as an artist when you're playing is a big part of figuring it all out,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to leave it at that. I mean, 'cause that was such a huge realization for me.
Yeah.
Because it came through during the show, and then I think it fed into how grateful I felt when I went to see Sisters of the Moon the next night. I just was like, I am embedded, like not just as a bass player, but as a person in the scene.
Right.
So, how about you? Do you have any lessons?
I would say one thing I really that helped with this showcase coming up. Not all that many songs. I don't know how many it is, but whatever it is.
Not all that many. I think it's like 30.
Yeah. There's been more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's 30-ish songs. I would say one thing I really realized that really helped me, I'm continuing to get better at, cleaning up after myself, but really focusing on the things that are important. And like, I don't really need to review not this song, but like every song has parts that like the efficient thing is to focus most of your time on the one possibly slightly difficult part.
Yeah.
Whereas I can just play through the rest of it's all chords, and then there's that one part where I got to take the lead or I got to do something important, then I should spend most of my time on that. Yeah. So that really helped me.
Yeah.
And then it also really helped me to, and it's something it's easy to lose sight of. Like, I feel like I was able to learn the songs better because I was actually, this time, reminding myself to learn the songs. Meaning not just write out the chart and have notes and have whatever, but to actually get into the song a little bit and realize not only that this part happens here, but trying to figure out why that happens here. Oh. And very often, if I figure out the why, then it's like stuck in my brain. Right. If I go, oh, I get why this part is here. Yeah. Not just that you're just running through a random series of notes. Yeah. It's sort of a little bit with the solo thing and trying to remember these solos and stuff and going like, well, but why is it this lick, and then why is it this lick, and then, you know, is this referencing another melodic thing in the song, or is it not, or is, you know, because even sometimes it's like, oh, the guitar is intentionally not doing anything the vocal does. And even that helps me remember something. It's just those little things. But just actually like learning the song and the music, and not just it's an F chord and then it's a G chord. And then I have this lick where it goes these 3 notes.
Right.
Yeah, but actually going like, why is everything where it is?
Yeah.
You know, and that was a takeaway that I should really remember for upcoming showcases. It's just like, you know, digging in a little more, not being so technical in a way.
Kind of zooming out, being a little more holistic on the song, understanding the song. Yeah.
And we've talked about sometimes how we tend to remember songs and arrangements as like shapes.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're cramming stuff, it's too easy to forget to like, let me zoom out and figure out what the shape of this thing is.
Yeah.
Let me make it something I can hold in my hand.
Yeah.
And then I got it, you know, whereas if I'm just reading, I'm like, you know, I'm not the best at that. Anyway, let's
wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up. So we are sponsored this week by A24 Films.
Well, we really landed a big one there.
Yeah, we really did. They have
we might be in an A24 film someday.
I mean, probably.
Soon.
Probably.
Chances are, yeah.
I'm a little upset because they were like, we're sending your dump truck full of money. It will be there between noon and 5. And they were here at like 10 in the morning. So annoying.
And you were probably still asleep, weren't you?
I was not, but you know, they just dumped it on the driveway and then I had to... It was like a car-sized pile of cash. What are you going to do with that? Took me half the morning. We are also sponsored by Performance High
Voice and Music Studio.
And we thank you guys so much for hanging out and listening, and we will see you next week.
Thanks.